Hey, morning, everyone. Welcome to Monday, 9 a.m. meeting. Looks like we got a lot of information today, so we'll just get right into it. I'm assuming, Kathy, you're going to go on the financials here? Okay. For the sheriff?
Sheriff.
Okay.
Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. So the sheriff's area has quite a few different funds for different purposes. The first being general fund, which is by far their largest fund. Whoops. Want me to do that one first? Bailey, I'll do that one first. I'll just go in the order that you have. I'll go in the order that you have. So sheriff extradition is a budgeted fund. And so let me make sure I have that one. Sorry. And so right now it has no revenue budgeted. So there isn't any variances. And then it has a very small amount for expenditures, basically services. And it's showing an unfavorable variance, but it's immaterial. The total budget for the year on personnel is like 7,000. And those are just the wages that are charged when they are actually on duty for an extradition.
Is there a particular reason why it's a separate fund? To me, it seems like that's one of the duties of the.
Yeah, I'm
law
not
enforcement
sure, but
agency.
this is something that was in place when I got here. So that's something we can look at. Periodically, we do look at different funds to see if they still have a purpose or a need. And so I'm not sure why it was separate, but it is.
I don't know either.
Okay.
Yeah, at some point in time, somebody thought it was worthwhile to track.
Well, sometimes we expend money out of that for other agencies. This is kind of the function of the assistant prosecutor's office of bringing people back, usually from out of state.
Right.
And sometimes like a major case, other agencies will go pick up their prisoner and will cover that expense.
Yeah, Kathy, I would kind of agree
Yeah.
on these ones that are smaller.
Oh, we just skip.
Well, yeah, or they could be incorporated elsewhere. I mean, if you had a line item and something drastic showed up, you'd explain it on the
Right.
line item anyways. Yeah.
But before you go,
Yeah.
Yes, before we go.
the services at 23.8, could you give me an example?
Services. I'm not sure what types of services are charged to sheriff extradition. I would assume, in that category, there would be things like if there's gas overnight, lodging, things like that,
Airfare,
airfare.
rental car.
Okay, yeah, I'm used to considering a proportionality where personnel costs are more significant than I see here.
Yes.
So, but you're right, the 1-day flight can be a good chunk of money. I assume we pay also for the individual we're flying out, not only our employee, but the intended.
Yes, yeah. You have to buy a ticket for them and feed them, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That explains it.
Okay, next item. If there's nothing material, then I'll just, you're okay. Okay, there's the general fund. This is the one that has the majority of the expenses and the personnel for the sheriff's office. So there's a few unfavorable variances on the revenue side, but they're very immaterial amounts and immaterial as far as budget as well. And then for expenses, the personnel expenses is by far the largest expense for the sheriff's department. It has a unfavorable variance, but it's immaterial. It's basically because your 2024 is includes COLA increases per their contract, and so it's going to be higher than the prior year. But for last year, for example, they were under budget on their personnel expenses. They were at 93% on personnel budget. And they're right now at 21.9%, so they're on track. So those are the things I look for. Are they going to be able to make budget and be on track? So.
So could you flesh a little bit unfavorable variances on the revenue side compared to 2023 is immaterial? Are we comparing to 2023 or 2024 budget? Or I should look down below here to
Yeah.
digest that?
So when we're looking at the variance there, we're looking at the 3 months for 24 versus 3 months for 23, so that we're trying to look at comparable. So the 3 months for 24, the actuals are a little less than prior year at the same time at the end of March.
I hate to ask the expert, but is variance the right term? Because variance, I would look at where you are compared to the budget, the plan. And we have a 2024 budget, and you're saying it's a variance to 2023. Is there another term we should use?
So, well, the variance is the difference between where we're at in 24 versus 23 at the same time. Then below, we're looking at then there's also capacity remaining. And
Yeah.
so they have sufficient capacity remaining. For example, on the revenue side, they still have revenue to earn. And so, and then on the expenditure side, we also quote capacity remaining versus budget. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it all makes
Mhm.
sense. I'm just saying variance, I usually think of against a standard that you must do something with or about, and
Right.
there's nothing you can do about 2023.
Yeah, this is right. So this is just saying, are you your variance compared to prior year?
Yeah.
Activity. And so, really there isn't any, material variance on the revenue. And then, like I said, on the expense, we are higher than last year, and we expect to be that way all year long because, the 2024 contract provides for additional, personnel expense. And then again, as we've seen in some of the other categories, services are higher in the current year than they were in the prior year. And that's primarily because of the internal billings did go up this year over last year. Internal billings such as IT, risk management.
I know, I get with the COLAs that the labor is going to be, personnel expenses are going to be up. Are we on track with budget though? Because I know you set some aside, a best guess, so that we would kind of stay in
Right.
line. Yeah.
So for the sheriff's area, because those contracts had already settled, we actually budgeted based upon the contract that was in existence.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I think they're in year 2 of their contract. I think 23 was their first year. So, yeah. And so when you look at their expense category as a percentage of total budget, that's the dark blue and the dark green, their personnel expenses at 21%, almost 22%. So they're on track. Any other questions? Okay, which one is this one?
Kathy, I'm wondering if it would be useful to perhaps list in your footnotes the current FTE compared to last year's FTE.
Okay, I can do that.
I know we have the number of employees that have been authorized, which isn't always the number that we have employed, because there's always a lag time with recruitment, resignations and all that stuff, but it makes a little bit more sense if we also track employment figures for the departments.
Sure, that's not a problem. We can add that on here
Thank
in
you.
the footnote. Anything else?
Or are you asking actual? Not budgeted? You're trying to get a handle on what, are we actually full staffed or are we not full staffed?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to, because I know there's a tendency to budget as many positions as you can, but it's a way to save budget capacity if you're not fully employed, you've got extra
Yeah.
funds at the end of the year. And
But I can do it when we're doing these reports as of the date that I'm doing the report and compare it to the same time the previous year,
there you go. Yeah, that would be useful. Yeah.
Okay.
actual head count.
And oftentimes I find myself needing to be reminded when we have approved increases in staff, because we do that all year long and it's hard to keep track sometimes.
Okay,
Thanks.
okay, Bailey. Bearcat. So this has its own fund. And so there isn't any unfavorable variances. We're actually on track. They've done the billings for the year. That's shown under the goods and services to the other entities. Other financing sources are transfers in, and so we're on track for this one on the revenue side. And then on the expenditure side, there haven't been any expenses so far this year for the first 3 months. But we have budget capacity.
On the expense side, what, that includes maintenance?
Yes,
And there's 2 bond payments per year that have to be made. So
Okay.
Yep.
and those haven't been made yet.
right. That's in
So
the
it-
debt servicing.
Does this go through the motor pool in some way?
I think so. Does the motor pool maintain?
They
Their
maintain, yeah, they maintain a bill for this. It's very minimal, actually, maintenance on that. The big issue is the debt service on the 10-year bond.
So that's the primary thing. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions about that one? Okay. So then this is benefits administration. This is a special fund that's set up for employees that were grandfathered, they're retirees of the sheriff's department. And so it was set up to fund those lifetime benefits expenditures. And so much per year is put into this fund, about $300,000 a year is set aside for this. Currently, we have an unfavorable variance on the transfer of other financing sources because I haven't made the transfer yet. But otherwise, there's really nothing to be concerned there on the revenue side. And then for the expenses, this is where the actual expenses of those retirees are paid. And so far, we have very few expenses for this year. We have a large fund balance, and that's because we're setting aside the funds in a separate fund so that we have those to draw on when the time comes and we may need to utilize that for those grandfathered employees.
So again, if I remember correctly, we have about 9 individuals left
I think we're at about 11.
11?
These are
Okay.
the left
And,
one.
and the concern is if they all go into long-term care,
Right.
it gets, the expenses are pretty horrendous.
Right. And so this is to make sure that we have a sufficient amount of funds available for that commitment and that liability.
And we're on track actuarially, or have you had a chance to?
I haven't had a chance to analyze that. I need to sit down with Katrina and look at the actual number of employees. I think what she told me is there's only one employee right now under long-term care out of that group.
Yep.
So,
Yep, and that's, she told me the other day, it's runs about 96,000 a year for the one employee.
Yeah.
And this goes back to the 70s, the left one
Mhm.
retirement plan that it was in existence from about 1970 to 77 in terms of enrollment, but obligation was for a lifetime for these folks. So
So how are we handling the era after one closed? That you don't have a similar benefits administration for the other programs. They fall under the general employee category?
you're talking about newer employees?
Right.
Yeah, there's no lifetime medical.
Yeah.
So that's what this was a lifetime medical. If you did 20 years or were disabled out, you got lifetime medical. That doesn't exist for employees hired after 1977.
So this is the only program I'll see about
yes.
from the benefits administration.
Right. Okay. Boat safety. So, this is primarily runs on governmental, grant funding. And so on the revenue side, we received a significant amount of funding there, for this fund, but there isn't any unfavorable variance on the revenue side. On the,
So Kathy, we have a boat, but it's not stored at the boathouse, right?
I don't know where
No,
I don't
no.
know where it's stored.
Another one of those, well, kind of interesting legacies from Cowlitz County. Must have at one time, because we've always called it the boathouse, but.
The
nobody's,
building,
Yeah, it was a private boat club at one point.
yeah. And I think this intergovernmental that's for this year is a little bit higher than normal. I think they got an additional
There's some state and federal.
state and federal funds this year over last year. And then as far as expenses, there's just a small budget for maintaining that boat. And so there isn't, and there's the personnel expenses, you'll notice that there's budget for it, but there isn't anything right now. And those occur at later in the year, typically.
We're getting a little closer to that time, right? The weather turns and more people are out on the water.
Yep.
On the revenue side, intergovernmental is the result of grants.
Yes,
It's not a performance fee of some kind that we charge.
I don't think so.
Now we get some state and federal funding for our boat program.
So if somebody in the city of Longview needs the boat, is that possible?
Generally, no.
Okay, you don't move it onto the lake?
Lake Sacagawea, no.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
After all, they've got all the other boats there, the cardboard boats,
Yeah.
yeah.
Boats on Lake Sacagawea have to be made out of paper.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, it'd be kind of cool to see it in there like over 4th of July or something.
So, yeah, that brings up the issue. That's a pretty big boat, as I recall. Is it on a trailer?
Well, we keep one in Kalama at the marina there. That's our biggest boat. It can be trailered. We generally don't move that around. We have a smaller boat that we keep on a trailer that's available to go to any of the various rivers or some of the, up the Lewis River or Silver Lake.
The one you keep at Kalama, that's the last boat that you bought?
No, that was it's probably 10 or so years ago. It's a Munson is a brand
Oh, okay.
on that. That's the one that's at Kalama. We got a Rogue jet boat that we got
Yeah.
about 4 years ago. That was a more recent one. Then we maintain a smaller, it's a John boat, about a 14-foot outboard that we use that works good on like the Cowlitz River and for dive operations also up at Silver Lake as well. So we have a fleet of 3 boats.
So if you had to trailer the boat to Lake Merwin or something like that, you would do it?
We can do that, yeah.
And that would appear in here as in what,
And your
category?
services.
under services?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
So with the fleet, who's the Commodore? Is that Troy? No, no, okay.
We haven't designated, it's a day by day basis on that. So.
Okay, what do you got next, Bailey? Okay, this is the sheriff's, and we came up with it, this is a new, this is related to the drug task force, but I forgot the name of it, this,
Crime reduction team.
crime reduction team. And because the old, agreements expired, so they renamed this, so. This one has a little bit of revenue in it. It's showing unfavorable variances compared to last year, this same time period, but they're immaterial on the revenue side. Most of this is related, most of the revenues in this area are related to crimes, fines and penalties. And then on the expenditures, is there a question on the revenue side?
Yeah, this is mostly for the sheriff. The fines and penalties there that we collect in other areas, they go to other accounts. So how do I know which fine goes into this particular account?
Well, this stems back from the drug task force, which existed probably for over 30 years. People, part of their sentence, were obligated to pay some penalties and reimbursement.
Restitution type
Restitution and court expenses. So people are under court order to do that. And those are still coming in and probably will for a number of years.
Oh, so this isn't anything new that's coming in. This is
This
just residuals.
This is old stuff. And the prosecutor has also received some funding from people as well, so.
Okay, thank you.
It is one of those programs that has seen a decline in revenues just because judges they recognize that these people can't pay, so fines aren't levied as much as they used to be.
And just for closure, the drug task force is now strictly in your department, right? It's no longer a consortium of anything.
No, that dissolved the actual drug task force. So we had one detective in there that we brought back in-house and joined a sergeant and detective that work in that world, drug and other street level crimes, we call them.
When I see the title is Sheriff-CRT, you're just looking for trouble, aren't you?
CRT.
CITs here, yep.
And basically this fund remained in place because of the old restitution and some of the older cases. So to have a place for them to fund and be part of the new model is everything is part of the sheriff's office operating expenses.
So at some point in time, this ends up going away because restitution has all been done
Right.
some point down the road. Yeah.
But it's amazing how long, I mean, it can go on
Yeah.
for decades in some
Yeah.
cases, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, they don't have to pay for the ancillary damage of what they've done.
No, I don't think there's interest added either, so.
Yeah. So, in some time in the future, we'll no longer be seeing this.
Right.
Do you have an estimate of when that is?
For you and me, it's next
Maybe.
January.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
And they still have it, there's I think a case or two still lingering in the court system on this as well, so.
You have quite a few vehicles left over on those cases.
I think we're just about done with those.
Oh.
Actually, some went to auction here last month, so. Up
Uh,
at Ritchie Brothers. So yeah, I think we're just about, if not done with all the vehicles, got those out of there.
The auctions now bring more money because they're antiques.
And
So-
not with RVs, I don't think. It doesn't work that way.
That's true.
So you're talking about the forfeiture laws?
Mm.
Yeah. What's the status on that?
But it still exists. We don't use it too often, rarely use it. It's still in place. It's always under discussion in courts, kind of back and forth on that, both state and federal level on that, but it does exist.
When was the last time it was exercised?
The last time what?
It was exercised, or last time we did an acid?
I'm not sure on well, we had one here, actually, I think the last couple of weeks. We had one where some drugs and money were seized by our CRT team. So it still is in place and we do exercise that. Both drug crimes, and there are other felony crimes where it can be used as well. Like cars, for example, that are used in commission of a felony, that sort of thing. So we do it from time to time, not a whole lot.
There's a lag there between once you seize the asset and you're disposing of it, there can be fair amount of time to allow uh, appeals and all that.
Yeah, well, and a lot of times the criminal case goes forward first, and then that civil part comes
Yeah.
after that's resolved. So it can be a number of years, like these RVs that were sold here last week. I think that goes back probably about 3 years that case was resolved finally, so.
If I recall correctly, there was some angst by someone whose gun collection had been seized. So I guess a lot of care is required in doing this.
It's still, it's still kind of a hot topic and under
Okay.
discussion, so.
Well, I didn't say anything.
Well, I was hoping that would be last. Canine programs. So there's a special fund for the sheriff's office canine programs. This receives miscellaneous revenues. From what I understand, there's sometimes donations received. And so there's also transfer in of funds here. And there isn't anything else to note on the revenue side at this time.
Well, in a few minutes, we'll talk more about the canine program, but yeah, we purchased a new dog here.
Oh, yeah.
Since the first of the year. We're gonna bring him in and introduce him to you here pretty quick, but that's why things are kind of, maybe the expenditures are kind of up early this year, but that was the purchase of a dog.
So that's all on the canine program. Law enforcement records, this of course is a program where there are billings that are done to other agencies. And so right now, we're showing an unfavorable variance based upon the timing of last year. And I think this is just a timing issue on our billings for law enforcement records.
Yeah, it was pending the settlement of the contract with the records union that you guys approved last week. So now that that's settled, we're going to be going back and retroactively to the first of the year and start collecting the revenue based on the new rate. So,
I think we had heard that before. Yeah.
So, and then on the expenditure side, the variance, there's an unfavorable variance on personnel and supplies, but it's very immaterial and compared to last year's numbers.
So another question for Brad, from a sky high elevation, there was a split on the records about 3 years ago now?
yeah, I think it's 2019.
Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah.
That's when Longview.
So as you look back on it, was that from a taxpayer standpoint, did that work out to the taxpayer or not?
I suspect there's a lack of efficiency. Longview stood up their own records department. I think they have probably about 6 FTEs over there. So I think in the process, I think there's probably 2 more or so FTEs working in that whole world between us and Longview.
Yeah,
Part of that, though, has been driven by public records and I guess, the more commonality of having body cameras and video footage. And that's a big labor issue in terms of time spent on these public disclosures. They have to watch all these videos in real time, redact appropriate information that shouldn't go out. So that's really been part of the push in adding for us, requested 1 additional person. And I think part of Longview, part of their push was to add people to deal with that.
yeah. Overall, standardization and something like that would have seemed to be what we would strive for. And it's hard to be standardized in a number of places as opposed to being in one place. So, okay, thank you.
I'd say there's I guess, a lack of efficiency maybe to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So next one, this is a law enforcement records, and this is equipment replacement reserve. And I believe this is to provide funding. There's a separate billing that goes out on this for the Spillman agreement or contract or services, I believe. And so this is just to be able to in the future replace those servers and things like that. And there isn't any unfavorable, there's a small, on miscellaneous, there's a small unfavorable variance, it's not material, and nothing on the expenditure side. Okay, sheriff range, last one. Sheriff range, this has a very small amount of revenues. And there's no unfavorable variance there. And so those are for billings for the use of the sheriff's range to outside other parties. That's what the goods and services are. And on the expenditure side, there's a couple of unfavorable variances, but it's very immaterial compared to last year this time.
And I'll mention, we went kind of different funding formula with this new range. It's a per day use. There's a half day fee, then a full day fee. And we estimate we're running about 85% of the days or the range is in use. We have agreements with all the municipal police departments, the jail, and the State Patrol and Fish and Wildlife. So it's the facility's getting heavily used. And I know as part of my slideshow here, we got at least a picture. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but it's up and running and very pleased with it.
When you say 85%, does that mean rain, snow, sleet isn't going to deter people?
The what's that now?
They're half the year here, it's going to be pouring rain, or at a quarter of the year.
Well, they use it. They use it rain or shine.
Okay.
And sometimes snow too. So.
And I assume we're talking about the gun range up north.
Yes, up by the public range. Yep.
No crystal pool anymore?
Well, we extended our $1 lease with them here, I think 2 years ago. That's used on occasion. The SWAT team will go out there. And on occasion, we'll still use that. Part of the incentive, it's nice to have a backup place to go, but also part of that, if we can continue that relationship with them, kind of forestalls the necessary cleanup and that's going to come at the end of the road somewhere when we turn that back over to Weyerhaeuser. There's some obligations on the county, but it serves our purposes now, and Weyerhaeuser seems to be happy to continue that relationship. So I believe I think it's $1 a year we pay to maintain that. And I think it's a good investment.
So you haven't had an indoor range in a long time, right?
No, probably in excess of 20 years.
Yeah. And
So-
the device that you use for training, we've talked about that, and I thought that was kind of neat. This scenario where you're using a make-believe.
Oh, the scenario, yeah, the virtual reality thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's still used?
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yep.
it's proven to be a good thing?
Oh, yeah, it's very good, especially with new officers and all. Basically it's a virtual reality interactive screen, and they actually can various firearms, baton, taser, pepper spray, and based on the scenario, the operator can actually, the scenarios can go different directions depending on how the officer's dealing with it. And they can escalate it or de-escalate it, and it's geared towards making appropriate decisions on which level of force to use. So yeah, that's definitely
Good.
used on a regular basis.
So Brad, I do have one little question. It's an operational matter, and that is with maintenance. I know our Parks Department has some maintenance responsibilities for the public part of the range. Since you're generating some revenue from the users, do you take care of the maintenance just for the outside of your shed, part of the parking and all that, or has that not been discussed?
Oh, no, there's the facilities they maintain both for us and the public range, the parking areas. Parking areas maintained and do that. That comes out of the range maintenance fund. As far as the range itself, we pretty much do that. There really hasn't, since the initial investment, hasn't been really too many needs. But we'll have a couple pictures here coming up. We'll show you on what it
Thanks.
looks like now, so.
Yep.
Okay.
We have guests.
And I did, I don't know how much time we have. I think we went a little bit long, but did have a little slideshow. We'll try to go through that here fairly quickly. But wanted to introduce our new canine, Deputy Brady Spalding. He's been a canine handler for a number of years. His previous canine, Icarus, had some health issues, and I think he was over 9 years old. Had to take him out of service last fall, but due to the fund we have, the funding from the county and the citizens, we're able to get a new Belgian Malinois. I don't know if Brady wants to mention a little bit about selection and the training you've just completed.
So again, my name is Brady Spalding, been here for about 16 years. This is my new buddy Milo, 2.5-year-old Belgian Mal. Came from the Netherlands. We picked him up through a vendor down in Alabama. Very energetic. A little bit about our training. We did our training through the Clark County Sheriff's Office with a master trainer certified with the state. So you get us certified as a patrol canine team. It's a 400-hour class. We completed about 300 or so hours of that class. As an experienced handler, state requirement is a minimum of 200 for me. So we got a majority of the full class hours in, but we're certified working the street. Part of our training goes with a lot of obedience, control work, which is we relate to fight work, getting them to out and listen to commands that are given. We do a lot of tracking. The primary focus of our dogs is all as locating tools. We do a lot of tracking, searching, where we use their nose. As
I think he's interested in you, Arn. Don't make any sudden movements.
play, loves to jump,
Mhm.
but we use their nose. Use their nose to help locate suspects out in front of us. It's safer for us to put a dog out in front of us to locate a person than to try to put a person inside a confined space or a densely area. So that's what we use that for. Yeah.
I understand it's useful, those being searched to give up when they see the dog coming after them. Yeah.
So a little bit about the selection process, what we did, we knew what we started off a lot with them, as we did in Alabama, we got an abandoned hospital that we're able to use. And we do a hunt test, so basically fall into a dark room, adjust the space. See if they're gonna hunt. We're gonna hide something for them to go find, and we see if they stick it out until they find it. We don't want to select a dog that's gonna go, oh, I can't find it. We do a lot of environmental stuff with them, stairs, slit floors, dark spaces, those sort of things, because those are the environments that we're gonna put our dogs in real world. We want to make sure. So, talk a little bit about Milo.
So do you take him home at night?
He comes to work every day, stays at home, got a kennel built for him, so he gets to hang out at home, and if I see him, I'm with him more than I am with the family.
So I think this is great. How did you get to be the lucky one? I seen the gentleman back there who was the canine guy before, right?
Oh, he still is.
He still is.
Oh,
We got-
So yes, we have 2 dogs in our department. So Milo is our patrol dog that's used for apprehension and locating suspects, and you'll meet Kilo here in a minute.
Oh,
He
okay.
does- He does. You know,
Kilo.
Yep.
Kilo for the drug dog.
Yeah.
Looks for kilos.
uh, it's a selection process, so I replaced, Deputy Brett Harris. He ran 2 dogs for us,
Oh,
Nitro
got
and
it.
Fritz. And so when his second dog retired is when the position opened up, I applied for it. In order to get into that spot, you need to go through a resume and interview process. And I got put into that position in 2017. I spent almost 9 years getting beat up by Brent's dogs. Dogs for about 9 years for a lot of time, so I think that helped me learn a bit more about working with dogs on the street, so.
And he also, Icarus, the retired dog, lives with Brady. So he's sold him Icarus for $1 and he's taken on full ownership responsibility for Icarus for as long as he has left. So
So how soon do we see him out, on the job? You're working right now?
We started like 2 weeks ago, so we're on day shift right now until next month, until our rotation. We're out.
well, thanks, Brady. And I knew, if you have
Oh,
a Kilo,
a quick
just
question.
come up and say hi and.
One more quick question. Do you have to train them not to respond to the loud bang of a gunshot?
So that was one of the testing things that we did in Alabama. What bad is we did some gunfire around, see how we react to it. He was alert to it, but did it different. It didn't, we're gonna do some more testing with him. We're gonna do some training with us. We're gonna do some training with our SWAT team this week.
Okay,
We'll
thank
get
you.
exposed to a little bit more loud exposure, flashbangs, things like that. So see how it does. We're still kind of in the learning things, we're building. Yeah.
Uh,
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Deputy Matt Aguilar, and this is Kilo, your drug sniffing dog. Him and I, we got certified in 2016, just a year before then, and he's certified to Washington State Police Canine Association. And he too is very high energy, which is why he was picked. He's got a very high toy drive. So what he's used to is coming to work with me and in the car, and when he comes out, besides taking his little break, he's expecting to do work, which would keep him busy. And he solely just sniffs around when I tell him to, like, hey, go find those. It's what I put a high-pitched voice, and he'll do it. We went through 200 hours of training. He's proficient with detecting methamphetamine, cocaine, and heroin. And we've been using training aids for fentanyl, because as you know, fentanyl is overtaking everything. I mean, that's what they prefer now. And until Washington State Patrol Canine Association and CJTC recognizes fentanyl as an elective odor, we can't certify on them. But we're preparing for that because we think that that's going to be coming next. He too comes home with me, and he's kind of a family pet as well. And as you look at him, he's quite cuddly.
How do you protect him from sniffing the wrong stuff? Or I should say fentanyl, it doesn't take much and
Well, so we work closely with CRT, street crime. They request us for not only doing what we call pre-air sniffs around vehicles, but sometimes when they get a search warrant, it kind of helps us out as a searcher for him to kind of locate something that could be hidden. So before I take him out, kind of walk the grounds first and see, like, sometimes you go in some of these houses and there's needles, hypodermic needles strewn throughout the house. I'm not gonna put him in that, right? Because if he steps on it, he could get hurt. So that's if I can't see it, yeah, he can end up being exposed, and then I would have to hit him with the Narcan. Because the Narcan works for him just as it would work for us.
he's always on the leash?
Say again?
He's always on the leash when he's being deployed?
Depends on the environment. Since we've been training, it's known that he's works better without me, they like to say. And what I mean by that is, if we have a controlled environment and I take him off leash, I let him show him, like his nose, he's gonna detect where it's at as opposed to me taking him and where I think it may be at, so he'll lead me to the odor. So if it's a controlled environment, I'll let him off leash. If not, I keep him on leash. When we do cars, obviously I don't want him running in the street. In fact, it's happened. The police dog had been ran over by a car because he threw the ball and they go nuts for the ball. So I keep him on a leash when we're out in the street. Absolutely. He's 9 years old and he still has the energy of puppy, and his job's a little different because he's not going to get hit and kicked and punched by a suspect. He comes out in a controlled environment, so he's a lot more safe. But he's very high strung. And his name's spelled K-E-L-O. That's about it.
All right,
Is-
thanks, Ness.
If he's injured in work, because I had that same thought on the fentanyl, we hear that just even the dust can cause a problem. Then whoever is that a crime against the person? I mean, are they responsible for damage to our dog?
Realistically, and probably not. No,
Probably not.
Try never to bill them for it. I don't think it's realistic, given the nature of the clientele that we have.
Again, it's not on their possession as well, so it'd be something that was in the environment. But thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, hopefully not going too long. I think we are. Do you have a few more minutes for?
I was pleased that they walked right in front of Larry and Scott and didn't pause at all. He just kept on going.
I'm thinking, if I'd have been thinking, we should have planted something somewhere.
Yeah. Ready. Well, if we're okay to go ahead, you got a few, see if the clicker works. Oh, okay, there it is. I have Troy Brightbill's here. I don't know if you go up to the other station, turn on the mic. He has some stats for us, but I just had included this slide. Over the weekend, we had a couple of events for Justin DeRozier, and the highway in front of the Hall of Justice up to Four Corners is now known as Deputy Justin DeRozier Memorial Highway. So we also had a vigil Saturday evening about the day and time of when the incident happened. We do that every year, and for first responders and the family, and turn the lights on for about 10 minutes and honor him that way. Okay, this is our staffing level. In total, there's 71 employees of the sheriff's office. Currently, we only have one opening, and that's we have a deputy opening right now, and that would be the position you guys approved for hire at the first of the year, a new detective position. Currently, we're reviewing 2 applications. One's in-state and one's from out-of-state certified officers. So we're taking a look at them and hope to have that filled fairly soon. We had a deputy lateral transfer from Lewis County started here 2 weeks ago for us. So he's academy trained, and he should be out here in next couple months serving. Just the only, I guess, maybe a few highlights. We've added 2 animal control staff, as you're aware of, at the first of the year, and then changed the structure with the behavioral health folks. Instead of being non-contract, brought those in-house as county employees. So I don't know if you have any questions on this, or.
Well, I know it's only been since the first of the year, but is that with taking over animal control, has it been fairly smooth, or?
It has. Actually, I got a slide coming up.
Oh,
So
okay.
we'll get to that in a minute here. So, all right. Troy, do you want to go ahead and Troy has some statistics of last year?
For this year,
This
first
year?
quarter of this
Okay.
year. So these are for our patrol division. So far from January 1st to March 31st, they've had a total of 5,964 total calls. Our total arrests in that time have been 395. That includes arrests in the field as well as warrant arrests. We've had 25 DUI or reckless driving related arrests. The deputies have made 878 traffic stops. They have conducted 76 school checks where they go visit the various schools out in the county, and a total of 272 recreation area checks. Our various parks, recreation areas, a lot of that is also our Pacific Corps deputy.
Well, thanks. One other statistic, for the first 3 months of the year, we drove about 201,000 miles. Check that with the last year's stats. So we run about 800,000 miles a year. with the sheriff's office out patrolling county roads, so. Yeah. This here, I think about last year about this time, the commission approved a resolution with other city councils and county commissions in the region asking for the Criminal Justice Training Commission to open a regional academy. They have done so. It opened in mid-January down in East Vancouver. They took over it was a mothballed elementary school. I've taken it over. The first class started January 16th, and we have 2 recruit deputies in that class. They started with 32 recruit officers, and they'll be graduating here May 21st. So for us, that's a great benefit to have folks going to locally. They commute home every night, and it's a big advantage for us in recruiting folks instead of going up to Seattle for 5 months, being away from their family and that sort of thing. So it also allows us to have some local input into the training process. They have 3 full-time officers. Vancouver and Clark are supplying those, but some of our deputies go down and teach various classes as well. It's reimbursed by the state for their time down there training, but that allows us to have some direct input on the recruits that we get, and not just rely on them going up to Seattle and coming back with that mentality. So that's worked out really good. And part of this as well wasn't really envisioned initially, but there's been a big push to get corrections officers hired and trained. I know Marin had somebody hired here at the first of the year and tried to get them into their basic training. It was going to be 2 years out. So during the legislative session that just ended, there's a big push to do more training. And part of that, they're going to start doing corrections officer training at this regional academy as well. And that's a 10-week course for corrections officers. Our officers are a 19-week course. So training is coming regionally, and we're hoping for certainly a better product and shorter turnaround on the training instead of waiting for months and months. So
If someone from Ponderay County wanted to attend, that would be allowed?
They could, yeah. Part of this push for regional campuses. They have one in the Tri-Cities that's been open since May, and they're looking to do a couple more, one up in the Snohomish County area and possibly Kitsap County. Those ones haven't opened. Spokane's traditionally ran 2 academies over there, and they're going to continue doing that. So, but I know on this one here in Vancouver, they do have, I think, about 7 or 8 deputies like Mason County, Thurston County down here. And part of that, the training commission does pay for hotel rooms. So there are some people that are actually not commuting home every night at this one. So, but the push is to have local folks primarily.
Those from Mason are here because the other openings aren't available. Or there are
Correct.
no
Yep.
openings
Yep.
up there.
There was a time we're waiting 7-8 months to get people in. They're supposed to start within 6 months of hire. So they weren't meeting that standard. This is helping us meet that. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Well, we talked about the canines already. See how we're doing here. There we go. This is our law enforcement record staff. We're fully staffed now and up and running. I've added 5 employees since December of last year. We're about half their staff. There's some turnover, but the 5 new employees got some great people completing their training and getting out there and serving. They're the ones that serve 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and doing their contract with the cities to maintain that obligation to have that availability. Okay, animal control, brought them on board January 1. There's a upper right-hand corner. I think that was client number 1, the first one we had in our temporary shelter over at the jail. I got a picture of that. There it is.
Okay.
Just some stats. So they were very busy. They've handled 240 calls in the first 3 months, ranging from primarily dogs, occasional cat, a duck, and then they get into some livestock issues, which some of those are long-term investigations due to maybe improper care or neglect. They're working about 4 of those currently, working with the owners to try to resolve those. As you know, we put in this temporary shelter over at the jail. That opened in mid-February, and we had 15 dogs run through there. 10 of them were able to return to the owner. 5 had to ultimately go to the Humane Society. So at the $300 per animal cost over about a 6-week period there, we saved about $3,000 by having this shelter, and anticipate that's going to continue and more than pay for itself. And there's some stats up there. January, we had 22 dogs we lodged. Then we did get our shelter open and dropped to 5 each in February and March. I will mention the January number was skewed. We had one case with 11 dogs that somebody was evicted from their home and moved into an apartment with a relative, but couldn't have the animals in there. So in their vehicle, they had 11 dogs and 2 cats. And you can imagine it was a pretty sad situation. We investigated, actually, the person did go to jail. Those dogs were in pretty bad shape, had to take those into the Humane Society. That was kind of skewed that number there. So overall, it's been impressed with the folks we have working for us. They came from the Humane Society. They're very passionate and dedicated to this cause. And the one worker had already had the 2-week academy. One of the other ones just completed that here about 3 weeks ago, finished the 2-week academy up in Seattle for animal control. So they're doing a good job.
A quick question, if someone hits a horse on the highway at 3 a.m, they still give the sheriff a call?
Yeah, if it was, yeah, we'd go out on that. It'd probably be a vehicular accident at the very least and get the roadway clear. In terms of removing the carcass, our animal control folks will do smaller animals, but we have an agreement with the road department, like deer and above sort of thing. They'll come and take care of the carcass
will
on that.
come?
The road department
Oh,
will come out and do that. So, yep. So here we have as you know, we have a contract with Pacific Corps, we've had for a number of years. Deputy Hanbury is currently assigned. They are funding 25 overtime shifts in the summer. They go up there, and as you know, the day use areas and the campgrounds, it gets busy up in the Cougar area. So they supplant Deputy Hanbury with, we do some overtime shifts up there, and it included the Cougar rest area, the bathrooms. You guys are aware that's open. I don't know who is involved in making that happen, but appreciate that being done. I think that's a great benefit up there. And there we go. As you know, Deputy Harris is a neighborhood response deputy, does a lot with public works. A lot of what he does is, well, he works with RVs, garbage dumping, provides some traffic safety on public works road projects as well. And he was planning on retiring this June, but his wife twisted his arm a little bit, and he's going to stick around for another year. So he's looking at June of 2025. And I will mention on the RV issue, Carl's let us know they're up and running now. They can start processing abandoned motorhomes again and get resolve that, so we don't have to go out of town. Or I know there was, like, I think, a contract potentially with somebody out of Portland, quite expensive, but Carl's has stepped up and is up and running, doing that now again. So
This always seems like a hard assignment. Is this viewed as, oh, please, sheriff, don't appoint me to this?
Well, Deputy Harris has been the first one, but I know when he was rumored to be retiring, there were several people were interested in doing that.
Oh.
Yeah,
That's good. I think we need that.
yeah, he does. He kind of a catch-all for maybe lower level things that aren't maybe necessarily a high priority in terms of our view of criminal investigation, but there are neighborhood issues like the garbage dumping and these sorts of things that makes a big difference in the community.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I think we're wrapping up pretty quick. I'll just mention briefly, we do some community engagement, national night out every summer. I know Commissioner Dahl was up in Castle Rock, and we participate not only there, but Longview, Kelso, Clem and Woodland all do that. You know, some other things we do, we interact with now the Special Olympics, the torch run, polar plunge. Do Shop with a Cop. The chaplaincy heads that up along with the sponsorship of Walmart every Christmas season. Take about 20 kids between us and Castle Rock. We do that. The other police agencies with Walmart and Target, they help take care of kids in the community. I didn't add a slide, but Citizens Academy, we've done that for a number of years. That's going to be wrapping up here next week, actually, at the graduation. So that's a chance for citizens to interact with local law enforcement. Okay, here's the new range. It's been developed. It's been fenced. There's some electricals been ran, and we have some storage buildings in there. And also this area here is a kind of a gun cleaning, dry training area. Get out of the weather and all, but can shoot up to 100 yards, and that's been a great benefit. There's also the building up there at the public range that we can use for training, and it's nice to have an indoor space there with actual restrooms and all to use. So that's been a great advantage, not only for us, but for all the staff.
On that previous slide, I'm surprised to see buildings, the downrange. Those are artificial buildings for?
No, those are actually portable storage units for
Oh,
various.
okay, so there's no human occupancy in?
No, that's just storing range supplies. Some of the various small agencies share one. Longview and Kelso each have one. The jail has one. They just store range supplies in those. Yep. Our peer support team, something we ramped up here over the last couple of years in conjunction with the chaplaincy. We've received a grant to contract with a group that does training of our folks to help their peers. It's been a big issue nationwide with law enforcement in terms of, retention and suicide and general well-being of officers. So we have our in-house folks who are trained to help their peers with whether it's personal or professional issues. Legislature also funded through the Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs a app it's called Cortico, and it's tailored to each agency can have it tailored to their agency, and that's what we have there. The sheriff's office has our peer support folks, our chaplains, and other links there for therapists and self-assessments, whether it's substance abuse, gambling, sleep issues, marital issues. There's just a whole array of resources available for our officers. It's something we're doing too, as law enforcement is nationwide, trying to address the needs of our law enforcement personnel. And I just mentioned we do have a lot of volunteers that help us out. We have 9 reserves. You'll see them over at the fair doing security. They help deputies throughout the year. And one of our reserves is a school teacher. So in the summer, he has extra time. He does a lot with our radar trailers. We have 2 radar trailers. He gets those out, moves those around the county, and helps us out with that. And it's great to have that resource when people call in to complain about speeding vehicles. We get the trailer out there and hopefully make a positive impact. I know he does back it up a little bit too with actually patrolling and pulling people over as well. So it's not just a trailer, but there is, if need be, there's some enforcement. Between our search and rescue groups, we have in reserves about 100 volunteers. So we have search and rescue, we have the dive team, and also the amateur radio folks who are available if there's a search and need them to come out. They come out every day of the year, inclement weather all over the county, and they're actually quite often called out of county too to help other counties with their searches. Our behavioral health unit, we have 2 employees. I don't know why that car is sideways or how that happened, but anyway, as you guys are aware, yeah, we switched from the Columbia Wellness model with 4 folks under contract to 2 in-house folks. That happened March 1. And they're out there working available. They're working actually, changed the model. We were doing 7 days a week with 4 folks, changed it to 5 days a week. With the 2, they're working and they're out assisting deputies. They also engaging with, it's a countywide program funded by the mental health taxes, so they help the smaller cities as well. Longview has their own program. They interact with the fire department's coroner's office. Last Tuesday, I know they were up at Riderwood at the community meeting. So they're establishing these contacts and are available as a resource to help with folks that are going through mental health crisis. And I know we had some, Jordan Spencer from my office kind of oversees that. He provided me some slides, but actually, I think maybe we zipped through those already. Yep, we're back to the beginning. So that completes everything I had. And I don't know if you have any questions or.
That's a nice job. I do have a question. Where do you stand on the evidence building that you've been trying to get forever? And
well, yeah, we actually just had a CIP meeting this morning on that. And that's one of the projects I put in for. We're going to be meeting here in a few weeks to review all the projects that are there. I talked with Mike Moss. We ran into some cost and regulatory issues putting it down in South 13th, but we identified some space out by Riverside Park. Mike Moss has offered, and I think going out there, we could get it built, and cost on these pre-manufactured metal buildings have gone way down since the peak at COVID. So I do have a request in on that with the CIP to hopefully get something built out there.
The location seems strange to me.
Riverside Park,
Yeah,
but there's a side area where there's actually a couple of metal buildings already that the Parks Department has out there. So it'd just be adjacent to, I think there's 2 buildings they run out there right now. So it's off to the side.
yeah, I'm just thinking it's, if it's over by someplace that's staffed 24 hours a day, then
Well, yeah, it's a challenge. It's a different, I guess, challenges when you build in the city, dealing with them versus being out
Oh,
in the
yeah,
county,
yeah.
so. But that's as far as the economic way to do it, I think that's the best option we have right now, so.
and you're going to electrify the building? I mean, it's
That would
made
be-
out of metal.
That would be the plan that, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be electrified and alarmed and that sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
as well, so. That's in the works, we'll say. Could always use, the CIP, could always use some more money, so. As you know. Well, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
appreciate it, Sheriff. Thank you.
Since we've run long, would you like to reschedule or would you like me to go ahead?
I'm for going ahead, but that's,
We just,
Okay, so I have a couple, they have a couple of funds, that's can go very quickly. Emergency, I don't know which one's gonna be first. They have emergency management, which is their regular fund where their personnel is at. And so this is showing one variance unfavorable under miscellaneous revenue, but it's an immaterial amount. And so they do billings for their services and they do those quarterly. And then on the expenditure side, their services is an unfavorable variance, but that's due to the current year. Basically, the internal service charges for 2024 are higher than they were in 2023. So they're on track to meet budget. And then they have another little special project fund, and I believe this is one that we're slating to close. We had permission from the board to close it, so we're going to make sure that this is closed out. So, and they'll just operate out of the emergency management fund. And that's it. Turn over to Larry.
While she's bringing that up, I just want to thank you for the for the opportunity to share a little bit about what we do here with emergency management. Because one of the things that we get asked regularly, I think I'll just have you advance the slides, okay? Doesn't seem to be working. Thank you. Commonly we hear, what is emergency management and what do they do? So I just wanted to explain real quick. I know 2 of you probably know this mostly. I'm not sure, Chairman Dahl, if you've heard this, but under the interlocal emergency management agreement that was formed in March of 1987, the Department of Emergency Management, or DEM, exists to work with the elected and appointed officials of the county and 5 cities to serve the approximately 110,000 citizens and 1,166 square miles of Cowlitz County to help prevent, mitigate, prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters and catastrophic events. Next slide. We're regulated by RCW 3852 and WAC 118-30 to provide the framework for what emergency management is and what it does. The interlocal provides objectives for the coming year with assistance from historical perspective, situational awareness of current trends, as well as inputs from a variety of subject matter experts or SMEs. Next slide. Prior to major emergencies, disasters, or catastrophic events, excuse me, as well as major planned events, emergency management works with partners to prevent, mitigate, and prepare for the expected and unexpected. Next slide. We work with a wide range, variety of representatives from the interlocal and their communities to identify common hazards and or major concerns that we may collectively seek mitigation measures. We work with a variety of departments and agencies, both government and non-governmental, to educate about topics such as preparedness, continuity of operations, and what it means to have a plan in place, an emergency contact east of the Cascades, and lessons learned from disasters both historically and recently. We regularly work with Public Works during highly anticipated or actual adverse conditions and or events such as flooding, winter weather, and slides. Other agencies such as the courts and elections we work with to assist in problem solving new or unusual situations. The Fire Marshal and WSU Extension have assisted us in analyzing local weather patterns and concerns regarding wildfire prevention. Next slide. We train individually and collectively. Our 3-person paid staff receives and provides training. We work to stay current on industry trends while keeping grounded with the local pulse. In February, we had the good fortune to conduct a 2-day training with our Southwest Washington Type 3 team, our Volunteer Auxiliary Communications team, or ham radios, Washington Emergency Management Division, and the 10th Hazard Response Force from Joint Base Lewis McChord, while also working on critical logistical support planning should an extreme event occur here in Cowlitz County. Next slide. Over the past year, Scott and I have been certified by the state of Washington and FEMA to again instruct incident command courses and a few others. This allows us to provide training locally for classes beyond and including the basic incident command courses, which most people take online, saving agencies hundreds of dollars in travel costs per individual while offering the classes that have reached generational limits. Originally in the 80s, incident command was offered broadly, but mostly it was taken up by the fire service. This was followed by the post 9/11 era, when we discovered most of those from the 80s had retired or moved on, and leaving a huge coordinated response gap witnessed during the events of 2001. Fast forward to 2020, and locally we had one of the strongest, most diverse incident management teams here in Cowlitz County. As a matter of fact, I tell people regularly that I would have put our team here in Cowlitz County up against any team in the nation for effectiveness and efficiencies. But we're at that point where we're the end of the service cycle for many of these people. Their experience and expertise is retiring with them, moving on to other opportunities, or they've left the area with them. This is an area of concern that we have to continue to address throughout the coming year. We continue to work with Pierce College as well regarding a partnership with their emergency management degree program. Next slide. Through outreach, we regularly and annually work with some while also trying to participate in last-minute requests. Our local emergency planning committee, or LEPC, consists of industry and emergency response partners. Like many groups, this group is working to regain their pre-COVID participation numbers while continuing to offer training and information. Our SAFE group, which is the School Alliance for Emergencies, consists of public and private school employees and volunteers, contractors, and emergency responders. Much like the LEPC, SAFE is working to find its pre-COVID participation. SAFE and emergency management together were the catalyst for the annual Lower Columbia Safety Summit, which through the leadership of members of the Kelso and Longview school districts is preparing for its third event, which kicks off the school year. Events, next slide, please. The events such as National Night Out, Fire Prevention Week, National Preparedness Month, the International Festival, and the Kelso Longview Chamber of Commerce Employee Expo, and over 30 others have helped Department of Emergency Management to reach an estimated 10,000 citizens regarding preparedness. Our emphasis continues to be on the Can We Call You? Our campaign to have citizens and workers within Cowlitz County to register for reverse calls, which are requested by the emergency responders. Additionally, we onboarded and trained 5 new volunteers this past year. Many completed ICS 100, 200, and 700, while 3 completed 300 training and 2 just recently completed the ICS 400 training. Next slide, please. Another critical piece to prevention, mitigation, and preparedness is the development of plans. In January of 2025, the county's current comprehensive emergency management plan is due to expire, and we have a priority for the remainder of this year to redo this plan. The review of such plan allows for the update of critical information and an opportunity to tabletop and exercise plans for expected outcomes. Next slide, please. Response, there's a common misconception that Department of Emergency Management is in charge of emergencies. Next slide. Truth is that we support the emergency response agencies on the front lines in a variety of ways. Next slide. I'm trying to get through this in a hurry. In addition to the traditional emergency responders, our ACS group, again, the ham radio and volunteer drone team, search and rescue volunteers and dive team participated in over 150 activations, trainings, meetings, and other efforts. Our emergency operations center volunteers were activated to some degree 40 times in 2023. Next slide. The most common and frequent way we support our response teams is through the reverse call or Facebook post. Major obstacle for us is our ability to warn citizens in the county if there is a lack of understanding that many phones currently in homes are no longer the traditional landline and so must be registered in order to work for the reverse call. Next slide. As we know, Cowlitz County is not immune for seasonal to historic events, from localized flooding to over the dike flooding, snow and ice, slides, and the deployment of the regional Southwest Washington Type 3 team. Next slide. Of interest to many over the past year has been the occurrence of railroad incidents across the country. Myself, I've been involved in 3 actual events and appreciate the efforts that were made by previous Director Ernie Schnabler to update plans, contacts, and emergency responder awareness through a variety of grants, tabletop exercises, and trainings. Next slide. The unusual or once in a lifetime or once every century or more events that occur are rarely well prepared for. We learn from others, we learn from history, and we learn from subject matter experts. But the important thing is that we are learning and that we have a solid foundation for responding to the unexpected. Next slide. Post-event, while many have finished the response portion of an incident, there are times when emergency management continues to work with local, state, and federal agencies. And final slide, please. Events such as the second largest landslide still in U.S. history, Aldercrest, lasted years past the actual event. It's not uncommon as we learn from wildfire and weather events around the nation. Forms from during the incident, paperwork, and other information is critical to help with recovery efforts. The use of web EOC by Department of Emergency Management and emergency response agencies can and will dramatically reduce the recovery efforts. Whew. And I did it. I'm done. And I'm willing to take questions.
Well, you have to come back in. You'll have to come back in about 6 months.
Okay.
Thank you. I mean, very comprehensive. It's
Well, and
nice to be reminded of the breadth of activities that you're involved in.
And you know, it's funny because even within our own agency, our department, we talk to each other daily and we say, what do we do? And it's like our hair's on fire and there's never a lack of something to do. So we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I would like to ask a question, but I'm really observant of the time, so I'll ask it, but I would ask you to just to brush on it.
Oh.
And speaking of brush, you mentioned wildfire prevention. Can you flesh that out in 3 sentences?
1980s, we had a large wildfire reduction program in Cowlitz County. We're looking at 40 years later of a lot of underbrush and vegetation called bladder fuels. We need to revisit that program.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
They'll bring it back for another time, workshop, but it sounds like before meeting, a conversation with Larry Wahkiakum County has trouble doing their own program. They don't have the resources. So I think we're talking about combining Wahkiakum or providing them service.
With their local emergency planning committee. So the LAPC portion. Mhm.
Okay. So, and I've asked him to bring that back. I'm just
Yeah.
making you aware of that. Okay.
That's
Thank you, Larry. Okay. Can we move right into the open public meeting stuff? Okay, the first one I see on my list here is Cowlitz County Emergency Medical Services District. Do we have that? I think that's our motion item for tomorrow. Is that correct? Okay.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'll preface this with, we were invited today to ask or answer any questions that there might be about North Country EMS and the EMS District 1 area. I'll just briefly describe what North Country is. We're the Advanced Life Support Transport Agency and Rescue Service that serves the 503 corridor, Cowlitz County, Clark County, and part of Skamania County. Certainly not the whole counties, but pieces of all three. We're made up of an interlocal agreement between the town of Yakult, Cowlitz County, and Clark County. We're funded by a regular EMS levy that runs every 10 years. The resolution that you're going to have before you is the North Country excess levy, which is run every 3 to 4 years. That subsidizes our budget, and we pull from that money to make up the remainder of our budget. So the regular levy, the excess levy, and then the other third of our budget is made up from transport revenue, taking folks to the hospital. And so if you're familiar with the funding model for North Country, certainly would know that if you live in Cowlitz County or Clark County and you pay taxes to North Country EMS, we don't bill citizens in that taxing area for transport. We recoup our funding from taxing and also transports if we have additional funding, or pardon me, additional funds that are not recovered through billing through private insurance, and we write that amount off. So it's, I would like to think one of the best deals going in terms of ambulance transport. We have a rescue team that's primarily volunteers, approximately 40 members. It's run out of North Country EMS. It's been that way since the eruption of St. Helens. So it's got a long history there. Run about 1,600 calls a year, 1,100 transports with 2 full-time ambulances and a 3rd on call, primarily 2 stations most of the year. We open an additional station in Cougar in the summer. On weekends, we staff a paramedic there with Cowlitz, Fire District 7, and then also have 2 AMTs responding out of Pine Creek in Skamania County. So that's a snapshot of what North Country EMS does, how we're funded, and kind of where our stations and staffing works.
So this goes on the, or you're telling me in history, this has been on the ballot every 3 to 4 years?
Yes, sir.
And what it takes, it looks like, is a resolution from us to put it on the ballot?
We provided the
Takes-
we
Yeah.
provided the resolution. Yeah, correct.
And then,
So the 3 of us are your board of directors, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
And the only time you meet is when you come and ask us to.
oh,
to do
Exactly
that.
right.
So it's really,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
District 1 is for Cowlitz County, but you're a conglomerate.
That's
You've
right.
got
Yes, it's
similar-
very unique how it's made up through the interlocal agreement.
But it makes sense because, you know, the needs are on both sides of the river down
Yeah,
in your
Okay.
neck of
Yep.
woods.
correct.
that
Yeah.
makes more
Yeah,
sense. So
yeah.
REACT is their board and they're saying, we'd like to put this on a ballot. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And it's a double request in case we don't get validated, you don't get a valid election in August.
Yeah, so we've historically passed with greater than 80% or yes votes, and so had a lot of community support. We cover a little over 1,000 square miles, and so it's a huge area, and it's obviously it's rural and slightly urban, some suburban, a lot of rural, and so it's definitely borne out a need. We can spend upwards of a couple hours just responding in the northeast part of our service area. And so a lot of times we're the ones that are showing up, the only ones that are showing up. So, yeah. But your understanding of how the interlocal agreement and how you represent North Country is accurate.
I will have a lot of questions, but I think it's important for the public to understand this, and I think the saving grace here is for you, for us to decide to put this on the ballot, throws it in the hands of the public.
Right.
And so I'm happy about that. I think the public will want to hear probably some amount of picture of how things work together. And there'll be questions that tie into like, how do you interact with Cowlitz 2, let's say, they've got their own EMS, it seems like, and how do you get your call, and how does AMR play into this? And I guess there's a new outfit or another outfit it may be vying for for the services. Like, I don't even know, do you have your own vehicles, or are you just sort of the focal point dispatching kind of thing? All of those details, they'll probably.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. We're dispatched by CRESA, which is the Clark County dispatching system.
Yeah.
And so when you're referring to AMR and Cowlitz 2, you're certainly referring to the urban areas of Cowlitz County. We're primarily rural in comparison. Yeah, like I mentioned, 2 stations.
I don't understand in comparison, in the sense that someone in the county is going to get an ambulance of some kind, and it could be from Cowlitz too, even though it's in or it could be AMR, even though it's out there. I think there's a sharing and agreements and all that kind of stuff, right?
That would be a mutual aid agreement. So the boundaries of EMS District 1 are clearly defined, and if you live in North Country service area, your first responding unit should be a North Country EMS ambulance. Of course, there are times where those ambulances are utilized, and so You know, they might be on other calls and we rely on mutual aid at that point. And so the same rule applies if we have American Medical Response or Cowlitz who respond in the North Country's service area. The citizen that received that transport, if there's extra billing, North Country picks up that cost.
Okay.
So similar to how AMR in Clark County, we would have mutual aid agreements with them. You know, we're commonly responding into Battleground, for example, we did this morning. That's not our primary service area, but under a mutual aid agreement, we would do that.
And it'll be good to have a map for somebody to see what your boundaries are.
Sure.
Also, this is unusual that you're going to want to put this, put the levy on for just a single year?
Yeah, so it's collected over 1 year to be expended over 3 to 4 years. And so that's the rules with regard to the excess levy. We get our regular funding, 3 sources of funding, one through the regular levy, which we can only tax at 50 cents per thousand. It costs us roughly $1.10 to $1.20 per thousand annually to make the budget. And so the regular levy is just a third of our budget. The excess levy is another third, and then our billing for transports makes up the remainder of our budget. So we only pull from those funds if we actually need to. So sometimes we might make it 3 years. In other scenarios, we might make it 4 or 5. It just depends on how much money we have actually remaining in our excess levy fund. And so just because we collect that money in 1 year does not mean that that makes up our entire budget. It's expended over multiple years. It's been done that way for a long, long time.
So the term excess is appropriate.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay. Is there, in the municipalities, there's often a problem of what is pejoratively called frequent flyers?
Mhm.
Do you face that problem too?
Sure, I think every EMS system does, but nowhere near the volume that, for example, I used to work for American Medical Response in Clark County, and we see nowhere near the volume of frequent flyers, if you want to call them that, but we certainly do have a couple in our service area. And so, you know, we call 911, we show up. Those things are starting to be mitigated by nurse navigation programs. We're starting to look at implementing our own community paramedic within our agency that would essentially be a ALS provider that can show up and assist people in their homes, not under the emergency setting. So if folks get discharged from the hospital, they need help with their medications, you need grab rails installed, you need fire detectors checked, fall hazards, those sorts of things. So we're just at the very beginning of going down that path, but it's something that's really kind of expanded over the last 3 to 4 years in Clark County. In North Country service area, we're trying to figure out like what is the actual need for referrals versus how can that person be used in the EMS system? Because I'm not sure that we would have the volume, but it seems like the right thing to do for the community. So we're going down that road.
So I think my questions are based on my impression of what the public would like to see. And you, of course, would like this to get a positive on the ballot response.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the service area boundaries, how far down the valley do you go from Cougar?
It's a mile marker on 503. I don't recall it off the top of my head, but it's not far east out of the town of Woodland. We come quite a
Okay,
ways
so
down
it's the whole
503.
valley then?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's quite a ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
Does it include the golf course? Does it go down that far?
no, not that far. Yeah. So if you would like, I'd certainly be happy to forward a map of the entire EMS District 1.
And I imagine the bond issue or the levy request will involve advisory committees for and against. You have
Yes,
to do
sir.
that for
Yeah. So there'll be a mailer coming out in May and then also an additional one in July that'll have a lot of this information contained.
And do you have a rough guess about the population in Cowlitz County for
That we serve?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
okay.
I can get that also.
So if I were redesigning our role for this board, for that district, it would be appropriate to have District 1 commissioner be the chair of that board because it's wholly within your district. That would make sense to me, but they didn't set it up like that, so.
Yeah, so the interlocal details who's on the North Country EMS board, and so several are elected representatives. And we do have folks from Cowlitz County, obviously, Clark County and Skamania County, but there are other seats at the time. We're actually in the process of redrafting the interlocal agreement. There are seats on the board that are designated for the logging and timber industry, which is not as relevant now as it was when it was created. And so we're going through the process of updating that.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions? That was helpful.
Yeah. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will be seeing you tomorrow again.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Public, I've not seen any public works people. Susan, did you have? Probably just the stormwater. There you are.
Morning. Sorry, I was getting transferred over, so I don't know what you asked. We have 3 items.
Okay.
The first is a call for hearing for amendment to the 6-year transportation plan. We're adding 2 additional projects that we applied for some larger culverts, and that process is moving forward on the state side, on WashDOT's side, and we want to get those on our tip. So as soon as the award comes through, because I'm being confident, glass half full, we will be getting awarded these 2 projects, and we'll be moving those into the process. So that's called for hearing for May 14th to add these 2 additional projects to our 6-year plan. Then we have the stormwater capacity grant, which we talked about in the workshop a couple of weeks ago. That'll give us, will provide the county $130,000 reimbursable to enact the MPDS program. And then we have a update to our interlocal agreement with the city of Kelso. They've asked it to increase the dollar amount to $320,000 because they have some additional chip sealing they would like us to do this summer.
On that last one, that's a two-way street?
Yes, if we had work that we wanted them to do, we could ask them to do work for us. Yes.
So the 320K is just an aggregate? It could be all spent by one side or half by each side?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm not seeing any questions.
And then my item is the interagency agreement with Washington State Department of Enterprise Services. So we've workshopped this a couple times, but it will be on the agenda for tomorrow. And this is just an interagency agreement to start working on our energy services contract with the state.
No dollar amount. Excuse me, there's no dollar amount for that?
So the dollar amount is, there's on the second to the last page, there's a fee schedule. It depends on the dollar amount of the project and where that will be. We won't know that until we have our bid documents in place.
Thank you. Looks good.
Do you understand this?
It's just it's a consultant's agreement. To
No.
work with the
So
state to,
they have a fee schedule, and then when you decide the scope of work, then the fee schedule will apply, and then that'll come up with a dollar amount.
Correct. And
Yeah.
so this is just the agreement process. Once we move forward in going out to bid and potentially awarding a contract, that will be more solidified. But going to Commissioner Mortensen's kind of comment is this is in place because we will be working with DES as our contract holder, and they will be managing the contract of the ESCO company. So this is just getting the ball rolling. But this will be in front of the board again in more of a the contract. This is just the agreement to start work with
Yeah.
them, and you guys will see it again.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna add, that when you actually find a project and it becomes a contract, I'm sure it comes back to us again.
Yes.
Yeah, one particular element that entertains me here is this is like your mother's admonition, wash behind the ears. I mean, why do we even need something that says you will do your best to reduce energy and operational costs? Isn't that what we're supposed to do?
That's what we're trying to do. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has something to do with some state auditor regulation that you have to have these agreements in place.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah.
They like
make
to
it
get
legal.
us used to asking for permission for everything.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, disgusting. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Noxious weed, Miss Jennifer, how are you?
Good morning, Jennifer Mendoza with the Cowlitz County Noxious Weeds Control Program. On the consent agenda tomorrow, our board has received a contract for $3,000 from the WSDA to help our landowners treat false brome, the Class A grass species that we've been struggling with over the past year or more. So we'd be happy to accept the grant funding to help our landowners to treat our false brome.
So what is, $3,000 doesn't seem to buy a whole lot though.
It doesn't.
What,
To put it in perspective, last year we did spend about $4,000 to treat false brome within the area that we know is infested. And then our program put about $2,500 in survey work towards that as well. We would do the surveys regardless, so it's just a dollar amount, but we primarily do the work in-house. We have the chemical already, so it's primarily funding our labor for treatments.
You're hit hard by the price of fuel, aren't you?
I mean, we use a lot of fuel, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I can look 3,000, that's,
But we get to charge our travel based on the fuel mileage set by the state. So,
oh, okay, so you get reimbursed?
yeah,
Oh,
we can be through
I
this
take that
grant.
snide remark back.
But I think that within the $3,000, we would be getting reimbursed, I think, less than $200 for travel expenses from here to Castle Rock and back. So
Yeah.
it's minimal. It's the cost of doing business.
so I'm curious as to who came up with the $3,000. Is that a box you checked on an application form or they just out of the?
I think that I've been asking the WSDA for assistance on this since we ran out of our last grant funding last year. And they randomly discovered $3,000. I'm not sure if it's something that was unspent, but we do have to spend it before their year-end budget cycle, so June 30th. So it must just be money that was unspent on another project is my guess.
Okay.
But they're trying to make sure that they can help us if they can, so I appreciate it. Our primary false brome infestation is in the Sandy Bend neighborhood up in Castle Rock, but we did find, after our grant was finished last year, we found a new infestation further out on Tower Road, which is concerning. We do have a little bit at the rest stop on the north part of our county on I-5, just a small amount. It's been a few plants each year, and we've been working with WashDOT to ensure that that's treated. Wherever they can, our agencies are helping do the roadside treatments so that we can help with private landowner treatments. If you can imagine trying to identify grass A from grass B, it's quite challenging, so. Any
Okay.
questions?
No,
All right.
thank you. Gary.
Thank you, Commissioner, for the There we go. Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to meet with you. What you have before you is the MOU between WSU Extension and Cowlitz County. This goes to support the faculty that are in this office. Specifically, there is the 4-H position that does youth services, works with the 4-H and in abundancy. I know that several of you are familiar with Jennifer's leash activities in terms of working with strengthening families, and some other programs. There is that portion supports some of her salary. In addition to that, WSU does pay for the benefits and the remainder of the salary. That also supports myself, who works with the Master Gardeners, coordinate those activities, leadership, and works with the small farm program in the office. And again, benefits are paid for by WSU and some of my salary. Also in the office is the office administrator, Stephanie Bierke, who is financed completely by the county, and we appreciate her activities. She's been there for only a year, but has just done a whale a mountain of information and been a great help to all of us. I think you're all familiar with Jerry Petrick, who's with the Small Business Development Center, who's in our office, and our office supports his activities that are supported clearly from WSU in a grant. There is no county money that goes through him. Also in the office is the FNEP assistant and coordinator who go through a grant and WSU money. And finally, we do support the Strengthening Families program that comes out of a grant. I think probably the biggest thing that I always like to emphasize when we talk about WSU Extension is our coordination of volunteers through 4-H, through the Master Food Preservers, through a number of things, and certainly my pride is with the Master Gardeners. This last year, they put over 17,000 hours of service into this community for 200 volunteers, about 86 hours, if my math is correct, per volunteer. Doing a number of things and working with the communities, answering questions, demonstration, and a variety of workshops in terms of trying to cater to the needs of our community. So with that, I would ask if there's any questions. I would hope all of you are familiar and have seen me before, but I won't belabor too far, but I'd be happy to if you'd like anything more.
So Jerry has an office at the fairgrounds, right? There's a building, cottage
What?
for your small business.
He's located here in the office here at Cowlitz Way and Fourth. So he has his own office in that building.
Oh, okay. All right.
He
Thanks.
covers the territory of Cowlitz, Clark, and Lewis County at this present time. So we see him about 2 days a week.
I've had the pleasure, almost probably a monthly basis. I spend about an hour with Gary, and they bring in, and it's been very helpful to learn all the support stuff they do throughout our county. I've appreciated that and appreciate the work you guys have done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have any questions on that.
No, I don't.
Thank you.
You're going to be easy on me. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Judge Hahn, I see. This is it's not on the agenda tomorrow, but it's more a miscellaneous item, and I don't know if the others have had a chance to see it. I can kind of bring them up to speed. You guys, the commissioners gave me the authority to put a small group together to look at the juvenile hall and see what we could do with the XX space over there. So we've done that. It's myself and Kelly and Judge Hahn and George. Yeah. And Gina Davis is on, Gina James is on that, and one of the first tasks was to have somebody look at this thing and say, can it be converted? Can you actually do physical work and make it do what you want to do? So we brought in Ada, however they said it, architects, which we use in other areas, and they're familiar with the medical type fields. And they did a walkthrough with us 2 weeks ago, maybe? Something like that, and kind of looked everything over and took a bunch of notes. And so what they've come back to us, it says, we think we've gathered all the information we have. If you want us to put it into a plan, if we can convert that thing, it would have a cost to it to get to that point for their time. And so that's what this is. I think they're asking $25,000 to get us to the point to, if it can be converted, and this was what it would look like if if we could do that. And I think Kathy had some ideas on where the funds would be available, and then Judge Hahn was here to answer any questions or anything that I wasn't able to convey. Hopefully I conveyed pretty much where we're at.
Yeah, so on the funding, a suggestion was made that potentially looking at the opioid funds that we have available for this. And because it would be a treatment, excuse me, a treatment facility for substance abuse, this would probably be a applicable fund source for this study and for potentially other cost.
So I take it they did not uncover any red flags that would make it impossible to go forward with remodeling, right?
No, you know, I don't know. I think you spent more time with them than I did. I thought George's idea, maybe you can explain that a little bit, how that is set up and what we were first looking at. And then George had an idea that actually made way more sense.
So juvenile detention is split up in 4 pods. And we were initially looking, alpha and beta are straight across from each other, maintaining that and as closest to where the intake is and the offices are. The thought was to wall that off because there are requirements to no sight and sound. And then there's the Charlie and Delta pods that are off in another, not in another section, but could be separated off. And after they had been looking at it, the thought was, should we in fact put the B and D pods together as another option? So they were looking at different options of how they could reconfigure the area, as well as in part that there are some requirements that still have to be followed, meaning that we do have times where we do need 3 areas for youth. So let's say that we have females that are in detention and males in detention, and maybe the males, they come from opposite gang groups. We have to keep those 2 groups separated. And so that was relayed to the to this group as well. So a lot of our needs that would still exist were relayed as well. But I was surprised I didn't hear what I thought they might be more concerned about, because detention it's detention. That's what it's built for. And it's very unique. I think that both of you have been there and seen it. But they didn't voice the concerns that I thought they might, to the degree. There are some things that obviously are an issue that they need to work around. But those were the main things that I heard.
And when they put the pods by that, see, there's recreation areas between the deals, and when you split them, easier for me to say horizontally up through the aisle, then that recreation areas between those 2, plus it gave them opportunity to look at a different entrance on the front of the building, more efficient entry on the front of the building for this part of it. It still, and they wouldn't have to go through the other or build out the back or something like that. So I think, and you certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the group is at a point where it says, okay, the first thing we need to know is this building going to work? And this is kind of the first step. And if they can come back and tell us, yeah, we can make this work, it'll meet state standards, there's still many more hoops to go through. But if it's not going to work, then then we need to look elsewhere anyway. So so that the ask is, from the group, this first step, the 25,000, we can find it out opioid for them to kind of, I would assume they probably kind of give us some renderings or whatever, how it could look and what it would, that it would meet state code.
Is then the request that we give the okay to today, or does this need to go through a formal meeting?
Well, I think it'd probably have to end up as an agenda item,
Yeah.
but we had it available to discuss and Judge Hahn was available, so
Perfect.
get it before and give you guys a chance to digest it a little bit, but it would have to come through as agenda item.
That's,
Yeah, I
sounds
think
great.
this is a good idea. I do think we've got one set of blinders on that may be something we cannot take off, which is when you look at the average occupancy of the detention center, then you only need one pod, the pod being 16. So that'll handle the load except for the segregation requirement. So when I said blinders is we're thinking in atomic elements of a pod. Is there a concept of breaking a pod apart?
One of the things that I know was put forward was actually because we need a third area at times, that it may be that the Charlie pod, which is one of them that we're looking for the substance abuse treatment area, is that maybe that could be divided off to have that
Got it.
third section in there. So basically split it up so it could accommodate both types of things.
Do we know what, like if we had a detention center that handled a maximum of 16 people, that would probably handle everything I've seen in the time I've been here. Assuming we abided by all the segregation rules.
That, I believe that's about the average that they've had lately, is around that number.
Oh, really?
It's been higher.
What kind of violations, if I might ask?
I don't know what the violations have been.
Because I think truancy laws are a vexation. as
And
opposed-
truancy, no longer an option.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds like we're in
Thank you.
concurrence, and I'll ask Kelly to put it on one of the agendas and we'll formally do that. You gave me the ability to work on this, and so we want to be very, I want to be very conscious that as we move steps that you're always involved in that. So that this is, like I said, this is just the first step in many, but I really appreciate the people we have on this committee and their commitment to making this done. There's a lot of work to do, but I think it's a good first step. So
Well, I think the greatest part of this is that not only are we serving our youth from what we address in our courts, but substance abuse is very real. And if we can treat that, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
thanks for your time today. Bill? Bill wasn't able to present at the workshop last Wednesday. I
Bill Fashion, Director of Cowlitz Governments. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. The Council of Governments has been talking about the boundary for the Metropolitan Planning Organization for some time. Pardon?
The light needs to be on.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
There you go.
I can hear myself now. Okay. Do you want me to repeat or am I okay?
Probably should repeat for
Okay.
the recording.
For those that couldn't hear, that's fine. Bill Fashing, Director of the Cowlitz Wahkiakum Council of Governments. The Council of Governments serves as the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the Longview urban area. We do transportation planning and a variety of other things. every 10 years, and I skipped a few things, but every 10 years, the COG is required to look at the boundary of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, otherwise called the Metropolitan Planning Area. We have three options. One is to use the designated urban area, which the Census Bureau basically sets for us. The second is we can look at the areas likely to urbanize over the next 10 years and include those in the metropolitan planning area. And thirdly, and what many metropolitan planning organizations across the country do, is to include the entire metropolitan statistical area within the metropolitan planning area. The COG Executive Committee and COG Board of Directors have discussed this on a couple of different occasions. Their recommendation is to expand the metropolitan planning area to go county-wide for the entire metropolitan statistical area. What this does is allows the COG to plan for the metro area on a broader scale. We receive federal funding to conduct that planning each year. The increase in the geography would provide maybe about $40,000 a year to the organization starting probably in July 2025. So it's not an immediate change. As part of that those federal dollars that we do get in, local agencies have historically provided about a 25% match to the federal dollars. So traditionally, it's been Longview, Kelso, Cowlitz County, Cowlitz Transit Authority, River Cities Transit, City of Rainier have all participated. If we go to a county-wide metropolitan planning area, that would include, and I skipped Port of Longview initially, has been a member of the MPO for many years. If we go county-wide, it would include the two additional ports, the city of Kalama, City of Woodland, City of Castle Rock, although the City of Castle Rock will be joining the MPO regardless of any action we take because they are now part of the urban areas designated by the census. So they get a free come along and get invited to the table to be a part of the metropolitan planning area, regardless of what anyone wants. That's just one of those rules that they will be part. The formula for the match dollars is based on population estimates. So the county would go from a very small portion of the metropolitan planning area population to a fairly significant portion of that population if we go countywide. I have made presentations to Kalama, Woodland, the Port of Kalama, Port of Woodland, and they're all in process of moving this forward. Hopefully we'll have this wrapped up by the end of April, mid-May maybe, but we are moving forward. I could probably add more detail, but I'll stop there. I think we've all talked once or twice about this issue in the past, and I think you're fairly well versed in where we are. And what we're asking for is potentially a resolution in support of the countywide metropolitan planning area designation.
I thought it was one of those hard to understand steps that the Census Bureau added Castle Rock to the urban area, even though their population dropped from one census to the other. And the two communities that grew the most, Kalama and Woodland, were left out. So the only way to do it right is to include the whole county so that they, the needs are greater down in South County, I think, for transportation planning, and we certainly have spent a lot of our time on strategizing exit 21 and the Woodland area. So it seems crazy that they made that one move, but
it's very deep in the federal law how they do it, and there's a little black box I think they throw the numbers into and come out with the result. But we actually thought in our analysis that Kalama would have been part of the urban area based on the 2020 census. We were off just a little bit and Castle Rock came in. So, but there's no doubt the entire I-5 corridor is going to become more urbanized over the next 10 years. and we need to do a better job of trying to plan ahead for some of the challenges that we're already seeing.
Unfortunately, there's so much here that I don't understand that I probably should understand, but I've never really understood that, even though I've asked questions in the past. One of the things that uh, I'm not trying to be offensive here, but you're presenting a picture that says, I'm going to bring you $40,000 into this organization, but I don't know what that's going to buy for what the impetus for this organization ought to be. This is a problem we can't solve unless we do it this way, that kind of thing, as opposed to the dollar arguments up front. And that's one particular thing that crosses my mind. The other is I'm fond of cooperation, but planning in a committee, it often leaves me feeling uneasy or unhappy. And too many people go into these planning meetings like the Vikings go into a planning meeting. We're going to take over that property over there and we're going to plunder it. You know, in other words, bringing it home. And we've lost that sense of cooperation. And I don't know if this helps or hinders it. So unless I get my head straight, I will ask you to pull this out of the consent agenda, put it to the motion agenda so that I can at least abstain at that time.
Happy to answer any specific questions. It is a planning process. The COG will have access to potential new money for areas outside of what have traditionally been outside of the urban area. So we will have, and the money is not driving this, but I think the true need for driving the expanded boundary is the challenges we're seeing in Woodland. And from an organizational perspective, it would be much more efficient and effective if we could assist Woodland in their planning efforts under the Metropolitan Planning Area designation. It may not be enough money to make a big difference, but it allows staff to use its time and resources in Kalama, Woodland, more so than we can today.
I've never really understood why folks in Castle Rock would want to tell somebody in Woodland what they can or can't do. And I look at this kind of aggregate committee as a bit strange in that way. Now, I do understand that, and you probably heard me say a few words about Exit 21 in Woodland, that in fact it impacts the entire county. So that is really clear. Whether Castle Rock can have anything helpful for Exit 21, I don't know. The other element that you bring up is again centered on the dollars. If we're not a member of this MPO, then we're not going to get the dollars. I look at that and I have to acknowledge it, even as I dislike it, because it's sort of like extortion.
It allows us to, the broader boundary allows us to provide services in a broader area. And if Woodland chooses not to participate or the county chooses not to participate, we'll continue to do the best we can with the materials and resources available to us and the methods we have available. So we'll continue to work in Woodland regardless, but this just opens the door for more possible opportunities from my perspective.
What projects are you working on now, Bill?
Countywide, kind of at this point, we're working on countywide safety action plans for all the cities in the county. These are required at some point in the future in order to receive federal dollars. So another one of those incentives that's kind of funky, but we're working on that. We're also going to start work on rural transit studies. So we'll be working with the City of Woodland independently, City of Kalama independently, Castle Rock and Rainier, trying to address their transit needs and try to help them understand, get input from the community as to what transit needs they may have. Then potentially working with river cities and or CAP or other players to help address transit needs in those communities. We've also got on the planning books, no funding yet for it, but specifically in the Woodland area is the effort to try and get a new bridge crossing the Lewis River from the bottoms over into Clark County to provide relief for traffic and transportation off of exit 21. That's a long-term project that has lots of hurdles in front of it, but from my perspective, we've got to have that parallel route to I-5 going south in some form.
And something like that, what are the top 3 hurdles?
Top 3 hurdles to the bridge.
Yeah.
Clark County engagement and support of a new road going through. You've got some property owners on the end, at the end of a dead end road that don't want to see traffic flowing down their road. So that's probably the biggest political issue. Financial issues are probably the close runner up to that issue. Just the cost of the project is substantial, and probably I would just stick with those 2.
So how will the MPO help that with those 2?
We can push for some of the initial planning to be done to, number one, identify whether it's feasible, what kinds of challenges we'll have. There are potential river crossing issues with wetlands and culturally sensitive areas that need to be investigated. If we can convince Clark County planners that this eventually needs to be on the horizon, then that will be a big step forward, I think, in laying the foundation for this to happen somewhere 5, 10, 15 years from now. I don't anticipate it will happen in the next 2 or 3 years. It's just, there's too many hurdles to overcome. But we've got to start planning for it and laying the foundation today so that residents know of the possibility of it as they buy property in the vicinity, and they don't go in blind and they aren't surprised that this new road might come through their front yard somewhere in the next 10 years. But we've got to lay it down on it as a plan if it's viable and if the various agencies deem it important to have on a plan.
Many years ago now, maybe 6, I was at a meeting in Woodland chaired by the mayor at that time, and there were all kinds of stakeholders at the meeting. And one of the things that was presented was the city of Woodland was going to have to spend something like $250,000 for engineering. No, not for engineering, for data gathering at the exit 21 and the main street that exit 21 gets in. And because I guess the WashDOT wouldn't do anything if it didn't have the right numbers. When I look at that is 10 years prior to that, I moved up here, and it was obvious to me that was a problem then. And the reason I tell you this is this looks to me like the same thing. It's obvious we don't have a lot of choices on exit 21 because of the topography.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we had that exit 20 built 5 years ago, it still would be a timely exit and things would be much happier now. But we're going to do another 15 years, and I'm saying, if the MPO said will take care of it, then I'd be a much happier camper, but we can't do anything anymore.
I share your frustration on that, and if I had the magic wand to wave it, I would put a new bridge in, a new intersection in tomorrow, but it takes a few years to work through the process, unfortunately.
But I think adding Woodland to a metropolitan planning organization eliminates one kind of roadblock or slowdown in that whole process, because there is more money available from the feds for metropolitan traffic improvements. So is it an absolute certainty? No, nothing is
Yeah,
absolute. But that makes them a little bit more qualified for grants because they've been approved by the local metropolitan area.
So the MPO might represent in a high-level pictorial way, a chunk of money. But now we've got, I don't know, 10 participants in there and they want their share, right? And so that's what I'm seeing is that somebody has to wear the big hat and say, you know what? Exit 21 is a serious problem. Yes, Woodland would be the immediate beneficiary of all this stuff, but in fact, everybody benefits. It's kind of like our landfill. The people on the way to the landfill aren't happy about all the trucks, but it's really helping everybody. Anyhow, but yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Any other questions? Okay,
Thank you for your time.
thanks, Bill.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you, Bill.
I have a couple other miscellaneous before we move I was handed a few things this morning. And I think we did this last year. We did this for them also, but correct me if I'm wrong. Port of Kalama is asking for a recommendation letter or support letter from us for their rail project, their rail extension project. We'll add 21,120 linear feet of rail support tracks to the Port of Kalama rail system to increase Timco's loading efficiency by 25 to 30%. And I think we sent a letter for them last year. I'm pretty sure we did something for them last year, and this year they're asking for a letter. It goes to, I can't say his name, the Department of Transportation.
I'm not even sure it's spelled correctly.
Secretary Pete.
Secretary Pete, yeah.
Go to judge.
Yeah.
That was easy for you to say.
What are you standing in front of the mirror? Figure.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Does anybody have any qualms with that? I think it's a
I-
repeat request.
I think it's a great idea. I don't know where they're gonna put it. I mean, it's roadway, tracks, and the elevator. I mean, where are they gonna add it? Must be north or south. They've got to do a loop or something. But
This-
yeah, I mean, if you look at what is needed now for modern export facilities, they've got to be able to have a lot of trains just sitting there in
Yeah.
line as they go through the loading and unloading.
And I personally, I have a lot of confidence in the Port of Kalama. They'd
I don't have a problem with.
be okay with
letters.
that?
Yeah, and we should all sign it
Yeah.
so that it looks, yeah.
No, I agree. That's
Okay.
okay. I'll have that
Great.
done up. The other things, and I'm probably going to make IT nervous a little bit, but, and I'm pretty sure both of you have sat down about a consultant, an IT consultant because Kim is leaving, about bringing this gentleman in to just kind of
Yeah, I
look over.
I think we have a rare opportunity for someone who can look at the whole picture and objectively take all his knowledge from other areas and put them in there. And that's something that I think we'd be remiss if we did not do.
Yeah.
Opportunity to take advantage of that expertise. Yeah.
Well, as long as we're okay with that, and have you looked over the details of this?
No, but I know it's been approved in form by
I know
by
legal has looked at
and,
it. and-
and the dollar amounts, I mean, you get what you pay for.
Okay,
It's expensive, but you just don't grab people off the shelf and not expect to pay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'll help us really cement a direction or what we're looking for in the next,
Yep.
as years to come. I mean,
Yep.
This will sound really bad, but I did find a typo on attachment D.
I'm sorry?
I did find a typo on attachment D. It's just the very first sentence that I think there's an or instead of, but other than that, it looked pretty good.
Yeah.
okay,
One thing is an advertisement, I think at some point, if this works out, the nice thing about a contract like this, if it doesn't work out, you haven't tied yourself
Right.
to eternity. AI is still going to be a very interesting thing, and I'm curious of what might come after this initial understanding.
okay. So I'll ask Kelly to probably put this on consent agenda for next week, and as long as we're all okay with this.
Is time of the essence on this one?
You want
We could do it tomorrow.
to add it?
I would think so.
Okay,
We okay doing that?
may as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Are you planning to talk to the department to let them, to reassure them that it's not we're gonna destroy the department, break it down and all that stuff? Or that we're bringing in an outsider to take over the department? I mean, there's those thoughts, I think, that would be a natural concern for the folks who are still in the department.
Yeah.
But we're just having an opportunity, we've got an opportunity to look at it with a fresh set of eyes.
Right.
And probably confirm the best and identify some of the glitches that
Yeah.
Yeah.
we might be aware.
At this point, my message would be, hey, we're just having somebody take a look at it. Whatever recommendations are, I think then that's the time you probably sit the department down and say, if it's drastically different or if it's more, we're along the same lines, but we need to speed up this, or I don't know what's going to come out of this, but
But I'm
But
okay.
I wouldn't have a whole lot to tell them right at this point, other than the fact that we think it's wise to just kind of take an overall 10,000-foot view and start there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think
Okay,
tomorrow is not too soon.
okay. We'll add that tomorrow. That was the miscellaneous I was instructed to put on there.
I like that expression.
Yeah.
It's
Jessica,
true.
do you mind if we take a 5-minute break before we get into you? Are you okay with that? So we don't have any requests, we don't have executive session or
Uh-oh.
anything?
Kathy raised her hand.
But Kathy, okay. Okay, go ahead. I see Miss Shelley over there.
Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director, and I just wanted to bring the new risk manager that's starting today. She's here and her name is Shelley Pierce. So I'd like to just let her say a few things about herself and the fact that today's her first day.
Yeah.
First day, newbie. Hello, good morning. Happy to be here. Excited to start a new chapter with the county and excited to get into the workload and start to really learn the job, learn the role, and start to make some movement.
Excited to put up with me again?
Yes, I am. I was most looking forward to be putting up with you again.
I have a serious question.
Yes,
How's your last name spelled?
Pierce,
Yeah.
Pierce. Pierce.
Spelled normally.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Good to have you.
Well, happy to have you aboard. I'm thrilled to be working with you again.
I'm
We
excited.
have some history and know each other, so that's good.
Yeah. 32 years in the financial industry, and now this is now a new chapter. So, yeah, excited.
Okay. Anything else?
I take it
Thanks,
her
Bill.
office is in your suite?
Perfect.
And we're good with you, HR. Okay. Any public comments? We got one public sitting.
Mhm.
Okay.
You scared Steve off for some reason, huh?
Well, that was just put out there. I thought that was a good morning. I enjoyed
Yeah.
hearing through the sheriff and emergency management. I thought those were good presentations. And
How often would we see the sheriff? I mean, that presentation was what I think is
yeah,
really useful and important.
was spot on, and
Yeah.
I'd love the public to be more, over time, realize that and get more involved with them. I don't know what the sheriff's schedule is. Is he quarterly or? Yeah, I'm not sure where he sits, but I enjoyed the information and it's good stuff to keep track of.
Yeah, something like that we would want to see at least annually, I would think.
Oh. Yeah, I personally, I'd hope at least a couple times a year.
Yeah, I said at least, right?
Yeah.
Well, we know we see him for budget. I mean, that's one. So you're thinking at least 2 more times for a
Well, yeah, because
program,
these
programmatic review?
these are just kind of what are we doing in the department? Like
Mhm.
animal control, we just took that on. We just took on the behavioral health, and I'd like to see how that works and grows. So,
Yeah, I think it.
and I still think that dog, he was looking at you. If that thing came running at me, I'd be on the ground so fast.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do like dogs, and I wonder whether I could charm them enough before I get a throat cut.
You better wear those big sleeves before you pet it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've reached the age too where I touch anything and I bruise.
Yeah,
That's no fun.
yeah.
That's right.
Okay,
All right.
we will adjourn. Thank you.
Perfect.